Welcome to the Creative Visionaries podcast. My name is Tori Barker, a digital marketing specialist, business owner, mom, and you guessed it, a creative visionary. This podcast is about inspiring business owners, building connections, sharing success stories, and motivating others. Join me on this journey as we tap into your true potential and unleash your inner visionary. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us again on the Creative Visionaries podcast. I am so excited today to welcome our guest, Alex Demczak. He's an author, speaker, and entrepreneur, and I'll let him tell you a little bit about himself.
Tori, thanks so much for having me. I've heard amazing things about your podcast, so it's an honor to be here. But I was in a 9-to-5 job for the past 5 years. Right before Christmas, I actually quit my full-time job to go all in on writing and speaking full-time. And there's a little bit of a backstory that maybe we can get into there on how it kind of led to that point. But yeah, for the last 7 months or so, I've been living the self-employment life, and it's been awesome. And it's been a roller coaster at times, but it's just super fun, and so glad I finally made the jump into the world that it sounds like you're in a lot of times as well. So
Yeah,
it's been great.
the entrepreneurial journey is definitely a wave, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's a fun wave, and it's
Yep.
maybe not for everybody, but I think for people like you and I, it is really fun and fulfilling.
Yeah. And so you've had something recently this year that came out that's huge, exciting, and I can't wait to hear more about it. So you wrote a new book. Tell me about the
Yes.
book.
Yeah, so our new book, The Sale, just launched, and it's been so exciting, so fun to have the book launch. And I travel around speaking about the book. I just got back from Nashville doing a workshop with a team on the principles from the book, and so yeah, it just hit the Wall Street Journal bestsellers list. It's just really exciting, and it's awesome, and it's super humbling just to have people reach out and say, "Hey, I not only got your book, but I read it in like a day or two, and I loved it." And oh, great, that's just awesome to hear. And so, a little bit about the book, The Sale. It's a business fable, and so I co-authored it with John Gordon. If you're familiar with him, he's the author of 25 other books, and I think he has 12 or 13 bestsellers. And
Wow.
this was his 26th book, and then my second book. So it was fun to co-author it with, a guy that I've been kind of mentored by for the last 6 years. And it's just the message of the book. Like I said, it's a fable, but it's about character and integrity. And so we really feel like, the book is aligned to really hit, kind of aimed at people in corporate America, people who are entrepreneurs, people who are business owners, and what does it look like to have integrity in the way that you do things. And we think that there are definitely long-term implications of when you live a life of integrity. No one's perfect. I'm not, you're not. But
Right.
when you do things and you do things that build trust, and you develop character, and you do these things over time, it's like, man, when you then can look back 20 years from now, it's like, wow, I'm fulfilled in the way I did made those decisions. I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm content. And when I go to bed at night, I can feel good about the way I did it. I can feel good about myself, rather than, maybe examples we see in the news of people who kind of chase these quick opportunities, have these
Mm.
massive moral failures, all these things that just create a ripple effect in other people's lives, and all to chase money, or all to chase
Right.
fame or success. And we do feel like there's a lie in our society that tells you that, your success, your fame, your fortune, those are the most important things about you, and you need to achieve those things no matter the cost. And so we kind of speak out through a fable and through a story, kind of speak against those lies in some way, and in some ways. And we've found from people reading it that it's been super empowering, I think. And a lot of people have told us, like, that is exactly how I think, and you put it in the
Mm.
story of a fable. And so that's been really cool, just to hear people's response.
Yeah, I bet people can see themselves in the characters and relate to it, and it's like hearing their story.
Exactly. And the main character's name is Matt, and we tried to make his character as someone who, like you just said, everyone could resonate with. And Matt is in sales. Long story short, he has the chance to make the sale of a lifetime, and this sale would actually bring him $7 million. And so, Tori, I don't know about you, but where I come from, that's a lot of money, $7 million.
Yes.
And so he has the chance to make the sale at a huge magnitude. But the only problem is, to make the sale, him and his team have to lack integrity in a major way. And so
Oh, wow.
the storyline is Does he make the decision? Does he
Mm.
go with it and make all this money and ride off into the sunset, or does he make the right decision and do the right thing? And so I can't tell your
Don't s
listeners.
don't
I can't.
spoil the ending.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I can't spoil it. We're gonna keep them on the cliff. They're just gonna keep hanging on the cliff. But they'll have to go out and buy the book. But it's really cool to see the transformation of the main character, and see by the end of the book, the way he's living, and kind of what that brings about in his life.
That's great. Yeah, and then from what I understand, there's 4 lessons, right, about integrity and creating lasting success. Do you wanna maybe get a high level on those? Don't give away the secret,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
touch on maybe those 4 lessons.
I'll just touch on one or two here, and then your listeners can go check out the book for the rest. But yeah, the first one is pretty simple. It's integrity builds trust. And when you think about, um, in your working life or your relational life, when you're around people and you're on a team where there is high trust, and you can count on the person next to you, you're able to perform better. You feel
Mhm.
better about that person. Everything is going in the right direction. But when the opposite is true, and you can't trust the person you're right next to on your team, that is not a fun work environment at all.
Right, right.
And the second principle, integrity allows for long-term success. And we
Mm.
really believe that the companies and the individuals who are saying, you know what, I want to make decisions today that, allow me to have a long-term future, not just like a quick, I'm going to make this money right here, right now, but
Right.
who do I want to be 20 years from now? Who do I,
Mhm.
what do I want my life to look like? And I think when you start to ask questions like that, it makes your decision making clear. It makes your decision making pretty easy in some ways, because you know
Yeah.
what you stand for.
Right.
And I speak to companies all the time, and I was just at, Ramsey Solutions a few days ago, Dave Ramsey's company. It's unbelievable the culture they have, over 1,000 employees. My old employer, Veterans United Home Loans, a great company. They make decisions that they hope will positively impact their employees years from now.
Yeah.
And we're about to possibly hit a recession, no,
Mm.
and there's all these rumors and people are nervous. But it's the companies and the people and the teams who are positioned because of their decision making to not have to fire employees when times gets tough.
Right.
They put themselves in a position to say, you know what, we're going to save money, or we're going to do these things. We're not going to over leverage. And
Right.
that's on the debt side. That's on the, talking finances. But even just on the personal side, it's like,
Mhm.
are you living your life in a way, am I living my life in a way where I'm not just winning at work, but I'm also winning at home? And
Yeah.
for me, I have almost a 2-year-old daughter, and my wife stays home. And for me, it's like, we just got back from watching a 10 a.m. movie at the movie theater today. They have like free movies for kids. And so, it was pretty cool just to be in the movie with my daughter and my wife today.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done that in my old corporate job. I just wouldn't have had the flexibility. And so there's little blessings like that. But yeah, there's a few more principles that, your listeners will have to check out. But I think the core message is being introspective about your life. What does it look like to live your life with integrity? Because when you live your life and then you run your business that way, you're obviously, just the natural byproduct is people are going to want to be around you. They're going to want to work with you. They're going to want to be your customer and your client. And it's kind of like this snowball effect where you start living this way. Again, no one's perfect, but you start living in this way, and all of a sudden these opportunities start opening up to you. I'm sure you've seen it in your
Mhm.
business with
Yeah.
with your marketing. And it's just such a cool thing. It's not the easiest path, though. It's not the easiest path, because we all have opportunities every day
Mm.
to make the quick compromise, right? But I love a quote from Tony Dungy. He said that integrity is not doing what's convenient, integrity is doing what's right. And I
Mm.
think that's a constant reminder I have to remind myself of, is that, what, um maybe the thing I'm doing right now is not the easiest, but I know it's best for me. And I think it's almost having this mentality of delayed gratification, right?
Right.
Because our culture with social media is so used to just, I want this right here, right now.
Instant.
Yeah, but as a former college athlete, it's like there are times when you have to just put in the work and put in the grind, and you have to just trust the process, and, do your work with excellence in the small things, excellence
Mhm.
in the ordinary things, that then years from now you can look up and say, wow, I'm really glad that I put my head down, and I worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about integrity, one of the things that I've been, really mindful of right now in my business is core values,
Mm,
and looking at core values that I represent, the companies that I work with, what their core values are, and then showing up with authenticity. And so, that really just speaks to the whole, lessons of, integrity. And so I can totally relate with that story and that journey.
absolutely. And when you live those core values in your life and you live yourself in a way that is disciplined, or people see, the congruency, that they see the alignment in your life where you say things but you also do things, and it
Right.
all weaves together. I remember hearing a quote that said, um, your actions speak so loudly that I can't even hear what you're saying. And I
I
think
love
that's a
that.
that's a great quote because it's so true. I remember I had a high school coach, and he was a baseball coach, and the guy said, guys, I have one rule: you never cuss. I never want to hear you cuss. But guess who the biggest cusser was on that entire team? It,
The
it, it was
coach.
it was the coach. And so as I guess I was in eighth grade going into high school, but I remember being as an eighth grader, a 14-year-old, thinking that is so hypocritical. And
Yeah.
obviously I'm not judging him for cussing. If that's what he wants to do, that's his prerogative. But
Yeah.
as an eighth grader, I was going, oh my goodness, like he's telling us not to do something, but then he's the biggest, person doing it. And so I just
Wow.
think that's a small example, but what does it look like in our lives now collectively? Are do your actions, do your words align? Do they match up?
Hmm.
And when as you've lived your life in your business now, when you speak, do people would you say that they trust you? And
Yeah.
that trust is something that people can't really take from you.
Yeah, and I think people are very observant, and they see or they hear or they read what you're all about, and then when they speak to you and it doesn't align, it's like major red flag. So
Yep.
it's like, yeah, if you in this industry, in this world, if you don't align with that, I think that in the long run you're going to be not as successful as somebody who puts in the work and walks the walk and talks the talk.
And I mean, for all your business owners, or people, team members listening, if you think about the Great Resignation, in a lot of ways, it's been the Great Reconsideration. These last 2 years, I'm an example. I'm a millennial who quit my job during the pandemic, and when you think about it, let's say you're a person who has team members that report to you. If you're the type of person who thinks you can stay in your old ways of management and doing things, and not being a person that can be trusted, like, don't be surprised when your best employee comes knocking on your door and saying, hey, I got this job opportunity over here, and yeah, they're paying me a little bit more money, but I'm going to go take it. And then
Yeah.
you're sitting there going, well, hey, we'll match the pay, and they're going, hey, I got to take this
It's
other
n-
opportunity
it's not
because
about the pay.
it's not about the pay. Exactly. And I actually
Yeah.
read this study recently about Gen Z, this next generation coming. They would rather, and this is kind of mind boggling to like people like my grandparents probably, but they would rather be part of a passionate company culture, and they would rather make less money. Like they would choose the passionate culture over making more money. And like if you tried
Yeah.
to imagine if we told like our grandparents that, they'd be
Right.
like, what are you talking about, right? But I think it's just showing you where the culture is at. People want to be part of something. They want to be
Yeah.
trusted. They want to have a team that they're accomplishing amazing things together. And we're seeing this shift. And so I think that's my call to any business owner listening. It's like, are you building trust? Are you doing things in your culture? I just did a workshop a few days ago in Tennessee, and it was so awesome. They brought me in to speak on the book, and then we did these breakout exercises, things to build
Yeah.
trust. We're sharing. There was probably a few people crying in there. It was
Oh
awesome.
man.
It was really cool, and it's just like, man, there needs to be more of that happening. Especially a lot of us have been remote for the last 2 years. Get back together, get with your team, find ways to build trust.
Yeah, it's interesting because I started my business right before the pandemic started in 2019. And
Wow.
before that, I was in corporate, 15 years in the corporate industry and doing marketing and all that stuff. And then here I am, I'm the entrepreneur. And then, a year later, this pandemic hits, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And so
Gosh.
I'm in, growth mode. So I'm building a team, and I'm, growing my business, and the challenges that come with a remote team is so different, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's good. There's good and there's bad. There's opportunity for me to have, I have a team member who's in Florida. I have a team member who's in Oregon. I'm in California. And then it just opens up the opportunity for clients and people that I can work with and people that I can help. It's not just local here in my city that I live in. The opportunity opens up, but then there's also the challenges of connectivity within my
Yep.
team. And
Yep.
I'm so used to, like with athletics, you get together as a group, you talk, everything is hands-on per se. And now having a team and trying to be a leader for a virtual team is a challenge, because you're like, okay, we need to see face to face because we can't be face to face, so we got to be on the virtual. Touch base, communication, trust, all these things are so important, especially in this new virtual space that we're in. And so it's it's a work in progress, but
Yeah, that's definitely not an easy thing. And I think in some ways you do have to almost over communicate, because it's
yeah,
like so many things can be taken out of context, and so many things yeah, like you said, you don't know where that employee that's working for you, maybe you don't really know how they're truly feeling because it's just behind a Zoom camera. You're not in
yep,
person where you normally feel that out. And so
yep,
yeah, it's definitely crazy times in that regard, but it's also there's some cool opportunities where
yeah,
maybe you could employ people or help get them get a job where they would never want to be in an office, or they don't, maybe they couldn't be in office, but now you're allowing them to have work at remote and at home. And so yeah, it's just so hard. There's so many pros and cons with it that it's just like,
yeah.
man, wild, wild west in some ways.
For sure. So let's kind of go back to the topic of the book, and why you feel it's so important for leaders to have a book, write a book. Talk about that, because I don't know, if you had always had this in your, vision and your goal to be an author. So talk about that and the impact that that can have for leaders.
That's a great question. And I truly believe that everyone has a book in them. That's a personal belief of mine. And a little backstory: during the pandemic, around the time, probably about a year and a half ago, I was going to say a little bit after you started your business, it sounded like, we started, me and my buddy out of Kansas City, Will Severance, we started a company called Streamline Books. And you can check us out at writemybooks.com. And what we do is we help people write, edit, and publish their books. And so right now we have about 16 authors in our pipeline that we're working with and helping
Mm.
kind of launch them into the world, help them get speaking engagements, help them ghostwrite their book, help them edit, things like that. And so it's been really fun because, there's a study out there that says, or a stat that says 81% of people in the world want to write a book someday, but only 1% ever do. And so for us, there's
Wow.
this huge gap, and we're saying, how can we help people?
Yeah.
And we actually have it down to a 16-week process. And so it's 4 months. So like, if let's say we were writing your book, we start off with a 2-hour kickoff call where we really talk a lot of those marketing centric questions of like, hey, who's this for? What's the
Yeah.
purpose? What are your passions? And then as we start writing, we do it in a 16-week process. So to your point, I think we believe the book is the new business card. The
Mm.
next time you're at a marketing conference, the next time you're out with clients, instead of handing them a business card, our thought is, what if you could hand them this cornerstone piece of content that's just this book? It's not it's not going to be 500 pages. Maybe it's 100 to
Right.
150. It's
Yeah.
something digestible. It tells about maybe the story of your business, your content, what you do. We just feel like that is such a cool win. Like I was flying somewhere recently, and I got in a conversation with the lady next to me on the flight, and we got to talking. She's like, hey, what do you do? We start talking, and then boom, I'm able to pull out my book and say, hey, I would love you to read this. And she started, it was kind of funny because like she started reading on the plane. I was like, listen, you do not have to do this just because I'm right here. She's like, no. She's
No
like, no.
pressure.
She's like, no. We had a few testimonials on the back. It was Dave Ramsey, Michael Porter Jr., and Jamie Kern Lima. She started It Cosmetics, if you ever heard
Yeah.
of that company.
Yeah.
And so anyway, she sold her company for $1 billion, and she wrote to L'Oreal, actually. She wrote a little testimony on the back of our book, and she's like, no, I recognize her. And so she started reading it. But anyway, the point is, I mean, it's such a cool value add for people, whether it's a legacy piece, you just want to have a book to share with your family members of the family history, or maybe it's about your company, maybe it's to, we're doing a book for a financial planner or a real estate agent, maybe it's to attract more clients. And
Yeah.
so I think there's a ton of reasons why people want to write books. We are just so excited about helping people steward their story, do it in a way that's efficient and that's
Mm.
fun. Because I think a lot of times people, I've heard so many people say, man, I've sent my book out to 30 publishers, the manuscript, and they've denied it. And we're like, man, that's a bummer. That people
Yeah.
have stories, they have stories to tell, and we want to help shine light on their stories and kind of give them a voice in that way. And so I do think everyone should have a book. Now, obviously, I'm a little biased because I own a book company, Streamline Books, but I do think that everyone does have a story. And I think a book is a great outlet to get that out into the world. And, in self-publishing through Amazon, 70% of all books that are sold are through Amazon. And so
Mm.
it's what people already know. It's print on demand, so you don't have high
Right.
overhead costs. We could talk a lot more details on that, but overall, I my first book was called Thrive You, and then my next, the one I just came out with was The Sale. And so I do have plans to obviously write a lot more books. But I think what gets me even more passionate is talking with people about, like, hey, what do you want to write about, and helping
Yeah.
bring them into our team, and our team members help them write their book. That in some ways gets me even more fired up than my own books, because it's like, man, this is bigger than me. This is
Yeah.
this is this is way bigger than just me, obviously. So yeah, we're excited for what we're building at Streamline Books. And yeah, it's been really fun to help steward people's stories.
Yeah, I can't wait to check it out and see if maybe I can conjure up a book inside of me.
Yes, let's go. I think you definitely have one in you. So yeah, that's awesome.
So we touched on a little bit about athletics, and so I know that you're a college athlete, and I want to have you talk about how athletics has helped you to succeed in business, and kind of tell us about your journey in college and athletics through your life, and how you apply that to your business.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, it's such a big part of our DNA, right? And it's I think about when we were in meetings in college, our head coach, Gary Pinkel, Hall of Fame coach in college, and he was so big on, like, just the small details,
Mm.
attention to detail. And so, for example, if someone's phone went off in a team meeting, I mean, my goodness, you were running until you're, passing out. And so, like, I'm just so conditioned now to never, have my phone for sure on silent, but sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm just going to put it down. I'm not going to bring it into this meeting that I'm going into, because it's just part of me. And that was something I
Yeah.
learned in college athletics. But I think, gosh, the adversity piece,
Mm.
I could speak on all day, just about how, gosh, the same challenges that I'm seeing now in business or relationally, yeah, maybe they look different, but I can stem back to some of the disciplines that I learned of overcoming these challenges to college football. And for me, being like the backup quarterback on the team, I was a walk on, and nothing is guaranteed. You have to
Mm.
earn it every day. And so there's a ton of challenges that came with that. But in learning, like, what does it look like to not only just try to elevate myself, but make the other people around me look better. So that's a transferable skill, right? You can take that
Yeah.
into any business that you do. And so I think it's things like those, the athlete mindset, and just applying that to then business. I had a speaking engagement in Kentucky a few weeks ago, and the event planner, long story short, they told I was supposed to be speaking earlier. I guess they somehow messed up the schedule to where I was speaking later in the day. So because of that, I got to the airport, I missed my flight that I would have normally not missed, right?
Yeah.
So I get to the airport, I missed the flight. The timing worked out to where I literally had to sleep in the airport. I didn't have time.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was so late at night, and but my next flight was at 5, 6 a.m. So I was like, there's no point in going to a hotel at this point. So I
Yeah.
slept in the airport. And so it's just funny because everyone asks, oh, what is it like to be a speaker, an author, and book tour? I'm like, well,
It's
it's odd.
glamorous.
It's
Yeah.
glamorous, but make sure before you sign up to do this, make sure you're okay being away from your family, sleeping in an airport on a Thursday night. So that's just part of it. And it was just, it's the mentality of, what, I chose to do this work. I'm blessed to do this work. I get to go to a company. I get to go to a sports team
Mm.
and talk. Like, that is my profession. I get to talk and inspire and encourage. Like, it's so fun and it's so awesome. But
Yeah.
with that comes responsibility of, guess what? There's going to be flight delays. There's going to be days where I'm in the airport all day. But how am I going to get better in the midst of those maybe challenges? And I think more importantly, how do I take the challenge and then spin it and view it as an opportunity? And I think,
Yep.
as business owners and all of your listeners, all of us can learn. And that's a discipline that we have to continually do, because it's not just like a one-time thing where you're like, okay, from now on, everything's an opportunity. It's like, that's not how life works. It's like,
No.
there are challenges, as you know, as a business owner, that come up every single day,
Yeah.
sometimes hourly. And it's like, all right, I have to retrain my mind to say, you know
Mm.
what, when this comes up, I'm going to view it as an opportunity to get better, an opportunity to add value, an opportunity to, and guess what? When I slept in the airport that night, I never let the event planner know. I didn't
Mm.
even want to make her feel bad, even though it was an oversight on their side. I did not
Yeah.
come back to her and say, you know what, because it's like, you know what, I'm gonna find a way to get better. I'm gonna spend time emailing or responding to stuff while I'm in
Right.
the airport. I'm not gonna just let this be a loss. I got to go there and speak, and it was awesome. And
Yeah.
so I think it's just reframing your mind and things like that. And so athletics, as you know, are just such a foundational piece
Mm.
of where I'm at today, because of the challenges, because of the triumphs, all the different things that come around and come with sports.
Yeah, absolutely. I attribute leadership to my background and time playing sports because, as a leader of a team, it's just like business, right? You have to work with different people, and you have to have a common ground and a common, mission so that you can achieve the one end goal. So it's really interesting to, think back and kind of retrospectively think, oh yeah, I really did get this kind of instilled from athletics and from sports and from the coaches that I had and the teammates that I had. And I have two young boys; they're 5 and 8, and so we're at the age now where it's like they have to be in sports. Like I want
Yep.
them to learn, what you learn as an athlete that you just can't teach as a parent. Like there's just a whole different dynamic of what you can learn and just absorb in your skill set from athletics. And so, we're having fun because it's like I played softball and I was, softball from t-ball up, right? I played, every day of my life and, every year on a travel team. And then all the way up to college, I was a walk-on as well.
Nice.
And so I had to earn my spot. And so with my kids, it's like, okay, what do you want to play? Like, let's try all the things, right? You want to do soccer, baseball, football, like just I want them to be exposed to different sports so that they can find something that they love and learn along the way while having fun. So it's like,
Yeah.
I love that.
Such a good word. I think it was Billy Graham who said every young person should either be in church, in military, in sports, and he just named off all these things. And it's like, because, and his whole point was, because they're learning to work with a team, they're learning to
Yeah.
be with people who are different than them. They're
Yep.
learning to like you said, in the leadership piece. That's so strong.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can imagine how many sports you played growing up.
I played definitely a lot. It was definitely baseball and football are what I gravitated towards for sure. But yeah, I was probably like you. I just played as many as I could and always loved being outside and doing stuff. So uh yeah. And now like tonight I'll be playing pickleball with some friends. So now it's,
Nice.
things like that. I'm not doing as much football anymore, but now it's gravitated towards things I can do when I'm older, I guess. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. My kids, they started playing kickball in the street.
oh, nice.
And I'm like, oh, yeah. When I, in my 20s, I played on a kickball team. And they're like, what, mommy? No way. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So it's like, oh my
That's
gosh.
awesome.
And it's fun because, my kids are, into football now. And so, as an athlete, I was a catcher. And so I had pretty good arm. And so I can throw a football. I never played football, but I can throw a football. And so my kids are like so impressed that I can throw this football. And and it's funny because in the neighborhood there's a family down the street, and one of the dads was outside and he saw me playing with the boys, and he's like, wow, you got an arm. And I'm like, oh, thanks. And he's like, did you play football? And I'm like, no, I'm just an athlete. I played sports. I just, and he's like, wow, that's
Man.
impressive.
Yeah, you could have been like the first female quarterback in
Yeah, I
football or
know.
something. So you should have pursued that maybe.
Yeah, I'll be the oldest one now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow.
Well, okay, so let's wrap this up with a final question. So, at the end of your life, what kind of legacy do you want to leave?
That's a very great question and deep question. And I actually had a mentor of mine. His name was John Draghi, and he was just the most in shape, fit guy you could know. He was in his 50s, and um, he randomly got glioblastoma, which
Mm,
is brain cancer, and very obviously, it's very, for people that are familiar with it, it's very low rate of survival. I mean,
mm,
it's very tough, and so I actually got to record him on my podcast a few months before and just talk about stuff. And what's cool is I asked him that same question: what, at your funeral someday, whenever that is, what do you want people to say about you? And like myself, he's a person of faith, and so he said, I want people to know that I loved God and I loved them.
mm.
And what's so cool is that at his funeral a few months later, Unfortunately, it was during the pandemic, and so it had to be live streamed. And but still on Zoom, there were so many people that showed up for it virtually. But it was really cool to hear the people that shared, and they pretty much verbatim said his legacy at his funeral. And so I've kind of stolen that from him, and I don't think he would mind. I think he would be proud in that way. And in the same way for me as a person of faith, that I want people to know that I love God, and I made anywhere I went a better place, but also that I loved them and encouraged them. So I think that's it for me. And when I think about long term, if that's my goal, that's what I want to do, then it definitely does shape and it defines my decisions of today. Because when I have these opportunities, and I just think to like, okay, where do I see myself long term? Because I think if you have that long term mindset, at least when I do, it really defines my decision making and the way in which I go. And so I think that's it for me, is just loving God, loving others.
That's amazing. Well, Alex, it's been so nice and such a pleasure to talk to you and get to know you and share your story with, my listeners, and hopefully everyone can go check out the book and look you up and learn more about you. Where can they find you? Where would you like to send them so that they can learn more about you?
Yeah, my personal website is alexspeaking.com. And then for anyone who's interested in maybe someday writing a book, we would love to just talk with you, get on a Zoom call or something. You can check us out at writemybooks.com.
Awesome. Any final words? I know you kind of stole the show with the legacy piece, but
No, Tori, I just want to thank you. I think we have a lot in common with our sports background, and thanks for what you do and encouraging people. And I just think, as we're coming out of these last 2 years, I think this is a great opportunity for people to really reset, recharge, and get after it as far as pursuing their dreams and their goals, because no one's going to choose it for them.
Absolutely.
No one was forcing me to quit my job and become an entrepreneur and self-employed, but I had to eventually take that leap. And so my encouragement for your listeners is, whoever's listening, that maybe this is hitting home with them, I just encourage you, do it in a wise way, but get yourself in a position where you can take that leap.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Alex. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day.
Thanks, Tori.
Thanks so much for listening to the Creative Visionaries podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe, leave us a review, or share with a friend. Also, make sure to visit us online at creativevisionariespodcast.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. And stay tuned for more episodes to come. And remember, it's time to tap into your true potential and unleash your inner visionary.